Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another Wednesday evening tactical review live stream. Thanks guys for joining. Looking over here at the chat, I see that Randall has brought snacks. That's always a great idea. And Brownies is here. How you guys doing? I decided to have a nice cup of tea in my, well, you can't see it on that side, in my Christmas mug because it's been snowing all day. So it doesn't matter that it was 80 degrees last week. Indiana has decided that it's Christmas time again. So I'm gonna have a nice cup of tea. Now I nearly had a tragedy with that. I should have grabbed the bags out of the cupboard. I have a bag of cornmeal in the pantry, as you do. And as you would expect, being cornmeal, it's in a yellow and white bag. My sugar is also in a yellow and white bag. That was nearly a very ruined cup of tea. So, Randall drinking iced tea. You know, if it was still 80 degrees here, that would be a great idea. I've been a little chilled all day long. So, I hope that this week finds you folks all doing very well. It's actually been a kind of quiet week in the gun rights realm, or relatively quiet. Of course, everybody's still yelling about House Resolution 5717. I'm not going to rehash that. Once again, we're still a few days until Congress is back in session. And I believe that they have actually extended their recess just to make sure that everybody's had time to get over any illness that they have or whatever. Randall, got your stimulus check today. Hi Vanessa, how you doing? Mine cleared yesterday, and so I have been frantically refreshing the Palmetto State railed AKV page. Same handguard as wrong side. Same handguard as that one. It's I like to have a functional handguard. I love the look of a classic wooden AK. But functionally, like, maybe eventually I'll be in a position to, you know, pick up a second AK that looks a little bit more classic. I think I eventually want to build like an A2 style AR-15. You know, those, they're going to be more range toys. Yeah, they will work, but God forbid I ever need a firearm for the main function of a firearm. I want red dots and flashlights and quick target acquisition and positive target identification. Things like that. We've talked about all that on the channel before. Poor conservatives in the house. How you doing? No stimulus check for poor conservative yet. Vanessa, got your tray and you are very welcome. I hope you get some good use out of it. I didn't want to give it up, but my girls made me a pocket stuffed tray for Christmas a few years back. So yeah, it's a little bit special there. So I'll let you guys continue saying hello to each other, and yeah. So some stuff that I have already ordered. I actually already ordered magazines in anticipation for getting the AKV, which will obviously, not that you guys haven't seen the AKV on 800 other YouTube channels, but it's going to definitely get some camera time on Tactical Review. And I saw they actually, if you have an AKV or a CZ Scorpion and you're wanting magazines, I think that every variant is in stock on Palmetto State right now. So I went ahead and picked up several of the translucent smoke mags. Again, planning ahead, because I know what will happen. the AKV that I want will become in stock, but then there will be no magazines available. So trying to prevent that. Picked up some of the 4.5 pound from Handgun Combatives. They have their what do they call that? Semi-custom, I think, 4.5 pound ghost disconnectors for Glock. So I've got those on the way. I probably should get a trigger pull gauge. That might be a good idea. That way I can actually look at a before and after. The particular ones that I got actually have they're semi-custom because they have an over travel stop in it that works for something like 90% of all Glocks, because obviously there's manufacturing tolerances. And then if it doesn't quite let you drop the striker, you can file it down, and so you might have to customize that. Anyway, obviously, we'll have a video on that. We'll probably have a bit streamer or a bit shoot and gun streamer exclusive showing the installation. You know, not that you guys don't know how to install a Glock trigger disconnector, but I'll probably get that put up there. And yeah, I don't think I've gotten anything else fun. Oh, I did get some more. Well, I think it's fun. I went ahead and grabbed some of my own channel merch. That way I can, you know, show it off on the channel. And I did notice, and this is nothing I have any control over, Teespring has temporarily increased the cost of their shipping, and unfortunately there's nothing I can do about that, so I do apologize in advance. Yes, $6 is a lot of money to ship a t-shirt. I don't have any control over that, so it is what it is. All right. First thing, Randall ordered bolt carrier group charging handle and grip to finish 350 Legend. That might be a good idea. Maybe pick up a couple of actual Radiant Raptors. So right now I'm running knockoff Radiant Raptors, and they've done well so far, but it'll be my luck that they will break when I need it most. So, Warsaw Patriot in the house. How you doing? So, actually, Warsaw sent me a really good link earlier to the... Hang on a second. He'll probably just plop it in there. The speech at the end of Act of Valor. That's really good stuff. And as we get into our main topic tonight, the elitism that we see kind of in gun owner communities, and really the first part of that spoke really well to that. Now, obviously, then you get to the part about dying well and, you know, not living a life to where when you come to the end you have a load of regrets. That doesn't necessarily apply, but yeah, good stuff there. Warsaw Patriot, not a mod. Is that a hint? How about I give you mod? Oh, I see. You can't drop the link because, yeah, go ahead and drop that link. It's a YouTube link, so there you go. You should have a wrench now, bud. All right, let's start digging in here. Like I said, it's been kind of a quiet week overall, which isn't to say that it's time to take a nap, because obviously you guys have all heard the scuttlebutt that the Democrats plan to hide a bunch of gun control in the next round of economic stimulus. On the other hand, President Trump is pushing to reopen the economy a little bit more. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, if anything huge and breaking happens, I'm going to let you guys know. And as always, pay attention on Firearms Policy Coalition and Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, your own state firearms associations. Just, as soon as something, do your best to stay on top of it. Obviously, we're all relying on various sources to let us know, but as soon as you see anything, start calling, start emailing, start, let your representatives know, congressmen, senators, your representatives, that you don't agree with this, obviously. So, USCCA, good call there, Warsaw Patriot. And speaking of Firearms Policy Coalition and GOA, if you live in one of the states where the governors have, either your governors or your local leadership has been super tyrannical, be checking their websites, because they are looking for plaintiffs, because they're gonna take these people to court. See, this whole hitting these politicians financially, it works two ways. One, you have the lobbying in the one hand, and in the other hand, if they're going to break their oath and they're going to violate the Constitution, then see you in court. And GOA and FPC has been really good about doing that. So, speaking of which, we talked a couple weeks ago, Elias and I did. We were talking about in LA County, California, the sheriff there, he closed gun shops as non-essential and then backed away from that and then reclosed it. So, let me drop a link for you guys. So I always want to make sure you guys have a source you can read for yourself. Gun owners of California had filed for a temporary restraining order to prevent local governments from closing gun stores. Because in California, instead of the governor saying, no, the right to keep and bear, the right to protect one's life and liberty is essential, the governor said, well, it's up to your locality. And so we have all these varying local tyrants who are saying, no, we don't need this stuff. So, gun owners of California had filed for a temporary restraining order, and Judge Barote, anyway, federal district court judge in the Central District of California denied that TRO. So, yeah, basically what it said is this judge ruled that it's okay to ban the possession and acquisition of guns for some people as long as you don't ban it for all people. Somebody explain this logic, how if we're closing gun stores and stuff that we're not banning it for all people. Unless this goes back to this judge is saying, well, it's not banned for law enforcement, who once again are civilians. We talked until we were blue in the face about that. And so I don't know, but yeah, it's ridiculous. And furthermore, okay to ban it for some as long as you don't ban it for all. That sounds to me like a discrimination case in the making. So, interested to see how this plays out, and hopefully there's lots and lots of lawsuits. Yeah. Mark 18's in the house. Poor conservative, I know you're not a Glock fan. George Washington, welcome. You haven't missed much. I found some tea that didn't get thrown in the harbor, and so now I'm drinking it. And I will put it in the harbor, in a few hours after I'm done processing it. And Poor Conservative, are you saying there's no lawsuits going in Michigan yet? I did see some lines of cars in people protesting in their cars in Michigan. So there you guys go. You're maintaining safe social distancing while peacefully protesting. That's exactly, until it comes time to be violent, that's exactly the way to do it. Good job, guys. Looking through, yeah, Warsaw, absolutely. All of this stuff is still cramping the Constitution and the freedoms that our soldiers fought and died for. And that's the thing is, man, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. So I'm just going to start with, to any soldiers who want to use your status as a veteran to further gun control, you didn't get it, and you've lost any respect that I would have had for you as a veteran. So, one other thing though that I saw came out of this, obviously we know that Australia is one of the more draconian places in the world as far as firearms. Within the confines that they are actually still allowed to own firearms, they have seen the number of people trying to lawfully acquire firearms and ammunition double during this current pandemic. And on the 31st of March, so we're a couple weeks behind here, but of course getting updates like this in America, obviously we're going to be a little behind the times on that. However, Australia has closed gun shops, which weren't deemed as essential, obviously, anyway, but they have closed them because they're afraid, because the people are afraid. It's almost like we all understand basic human nature, and that when people get scared, they panic and do stupid and violent things, and so we've got to be able to protect against that. So, anyway, one thing though that I found interesting in this article is that most non-essential businesses, though they weren't allowed to be open, were, however, given some limited, like they could function with minimal staff just for normal business, like behind the scenes type stuff. And there was no such exemption made for gunsmiths and gun shops. So good for you, regular Australian people who are trying to show the government that regular people feel the need to protect themselves and their life. And good for you, Australian government, showing that tyrants gonna tyrant. So, Warsaw Patriot heading out. Thanks for dropping in, bud. And I'm dropping the link in chat there for that story. And yeah, that wraps up kind of the big news that I saw this week. Everything else is either rehashing what we've already talked about, or is currently still scuttlebutt, and there's nothing substantial enough to talk about on that. So let's move on to our title here tonight. And obviously I'm far from the first YouTuber to talk about elitism in the gun community. Recently, like within the last 4 to 6 months, Mr. Guns and Gear has had a similar video. And then last week I saw Zeke Shoots. He did a live stream where he was focusing specifically on the AK-47 community. And it was kind of funny. So he was talking about, people go out, they buy their first AK, and because they're uninformed, because they assume that an AK is an AK, and they just pick up whatever is the most affordable and end up with a Raz 47 or an IO Inc. or fill in the blanks. Yeah, see the whole gun channels community. It happens. It certainly does. Anyway, so his point was that you'll see people come in, they say, hey, I just got an AK, and they post their IO Inc. that they picked up because they didn't know. And they either get flamed to the point that they just leave the community, or they get banned outright. He said he's seen that. And yeah, I think we've all seen that. So sticking in the vein of the AK, I think that most of us, we have heard through the years about this, rugged reliability of the AK-47. It just, barrel gets bent, you just hit it against something and bend the barrel back and you keep going, etc., etc. And without realizing that there are so many different manufacturers, different manufacturing processes, so on and so forth. Now, I feel like when you're going to spend, well, let's back up. It's been a lot of years since you could reliably go out and buy an AK-47 for $300-400. At this point, even an SKS is going to run you $300. They were still in stock at that price at Classic Firearms when I looked earlier. And Palmetto State has SKSs for $350. So if that's an itch you're trying to scratch, there you open up a new tab and you can do that while you listen to me. So to me, when your most basic AK is going to start around $500, that warrants some research. But I can see where somebody would say, oh, an AK is an AK, kind of like the whole in the AR-15 world, well, mil-spec is mil-spec, and we'll come back to that. Zeke was saying that with the exception of the Palmetto State, nearly every community craps on budget AKs. Of course, I ask him, where are you finding communities, except for the Palmetto State AK community, that doesn't crap on Palmetto State AKs either? And I'll grant you, with the Generation 1 Palmetto State AK, that was earned. What am I trying to say here? Because it's a fine line to walk. Do I believe that the Raz 47 with its continuously variable headspace and an IO Inc. Explodomatic AK, do I think that we should just, let somebody go out and maybe blow their face off? No. But you can explain to somebody that they might have a problematic rifle without jumping down their throat. Oh, look, the poors are into gun ownership. We've seen it, we've heard it, maybe we've been guilty of it. So, I don't know, I could probably end the whole conversation there, say goodnight early, and call it a night. Because I think that's the key takeaway is let's be decent human beings. Warn somebody if they've got something that could potentially be a hazard. I've told more than one person when I saw that they had purchased an IO or a RAS-47, you might want to look into problems that people have had with those. I would highly recommend picking up a set of headspace gauges, learn how to use those, and then enjoy your rifle. The fact of the matter is, and this is something some of us need to keep in mind, is that not everybody is going to shoot as many rounds as everybody else. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, a lot of you guys watched that video where I was testing out the Hotshot Elite and the ZVS 9mm ammunition. Between those 4 boxes of ammunition and a magazine of Federal Black Box that I fired for testing and calibration purposes, I put 220 rounds through my pistol that afternoon. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands, I couldn't begin to guess, but there's a huge portion of the gun-owning population who aren't going to shoot that many rounds in the next year, maybe in the next 2 years. Do I think that's problematic? Yeah, we've talked about that. Firearms proficiency is a super perishable skill. However, keeping that in mind, these people might be able to, you people, but folks like that could potentially purchase something that, so maybe it won't last as long as a, chrome lined, truly military grade AK, but they're never going to wear it out. Case in point, let's talk about the Palmetto State AK GF3. Battlefield Vegas had a full auto rental conversion that they finally retired because it started keyholing every 3 rounds of mag or something like that. They hit 17,000 rounds in that weapon on full auto before it got to the point that they needed to retire it for rebarreling or whatever they're going to do with it. That's a number. That's a definitive number. Is 17,000 rounds good barrel life for an AK-47? Let's see. I'll give this just a couple of minutes for folks to jump in the chat. Do you think that 17,000 and change? So between 17 and 18,000 on full auto, good barrel life for an AK-47 or not? We'll give this a little bit of time while I catch up on the chat. YouTube gun weenies with AKs. That's me. I'm a YouTube gun weenie with an AK. Brownies on mobile, that is not the best experience. YouTube needs to do something with a lot of things on the mobile experience. Most critically in my book is they need to talk to the Discord developers, and they need to figure out username mentions in the live chat. Hunts for Life, hey, welcome. Been modding a Crossman 1377, swapping it at 22. Cool. Yeah, if you want to post a how-to up on a gun streamer or something, I'd be interested in watching that. I don't see anybody. So the answer is no. A lot of folks would say that minimum of 30,000 rounds is what you should expect to see out of a decent quality AK-47 barrel, even on full auto. So roughly 50% of the expected life. That's information that's worth telling people if they're going to get into AK-47 ownership. You know, okay, here you go. You can get a Palmetto State AK-47 and you're going to save X number of hundred of dollars compared to comparable feature set AKs from other manufacturers, but you're only going to get about half the barrel life. But realistically, how many people are going to put 17,000 rounds through their AK-47? I can't answer that for you. These are the kind of things that we need to take into account, though, when we get ready to rip somebody's head off for a purchase they've made with their money. Because at the end of the day, they can buy whatever they want. If they want to go buy a late 60s Ford Pinto for their demolition derby circuit, that's up to them. That's their money. All right, similarly, we see this in the AR-15 realm. Am I saying that a Palmetto State Freedom rifle is the same caliber of rifle as a Bravo company? I'm not. There's a really good infographic out there that shows comparison. You know, this is like dumpster tier. This is kind of pores tier. This is going to like the lowest level that's going to function well. This camera's backwards to me. You know, mid tier. And then, you know, you go all the way up to Gucci / operator tier. It's one thing to point out to people that this is the best quality, this is the lowest quality I'd recommend to trust your life. It's another thing entirely to just tell somebody off. Especially when they're new to the community. Now, I would think that since within the last couple of weeks we have talked about the number of new first-time firearms purchasers last month alone, we are welcoming a huge number of new gun owners to the ranks. Some of them purchased the cheapest thing they could because it was what was in their budget. Some of them purchased something that was garbage because they never considered that they needed a firearm until it was too late to get anything else. Some of them, I don't know. Obviously, though, for every firearm that was sold on which I would be willing to stake my life or my family's life, there were probably dozens sold that I would only have on this channel as a meme or if somebody gave it to me. Does that mean it won't work for what they want it to do? No, it just means that that wouldn't be my first, second, or even 25th choice. But in a moment of necessity, the gun you have, provided it works, provided you've done some training with it, the gun you have is better than the best gun in the world that you don't. And we kind of all need to keep that in mind. I'm glad to see that that George Washington made it in here, because in my comment on Zeke's video, he ask me to talk about this. So, right. Stone Age Idaho, 17,000 on full auto is quite different than 17,000 on semi-auto. Oh, oops, Randall. Yeah, I showed my youth there. Why was I thinking that the Pinto came out in '68? I'm thinking of all the cool cars. The cool cars all came out in the '60s. And then the cars that they were later rebadged to came out in the '70s. That's what that was. Anyway, so that's a really good point, though, Stone Age. A lot of people, when they talk about shooting steel-cased ammo, specifically in an AR-15, they like to point to the Lucky Gunner article where they shot out barrels. They shot out AR-15 barrels using I think it was Federal was their control brass case, and then they shot out, or they used 3 or 4. I think it was Red Army Standard, Wolf, and Tula, but I won't swear to that. I don't have the article pulled up right now. And the number that they got was, I think that they shot out those barrels in well south of 10,000 rounds with the steel case. The problem is that they shot those rounds out of each of those rifles. So they went through 40,000 rounds of ammo within a week, I think is what the time frame was on that. Again, don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I've read the article. 2 things I want to point out. One, that's a lot of friction, because yeah, there's no denying it that bimetal jacket is going to produce more friction down your rifling than a copper or brass jacketed projectile. Absolutely. However, mag dump after mag dump after mag dump is going to increase that. So, yeah. The other thing is when you do the math on it. Now, right now the math is all kinds of screwed up, but on average what I'm seeing is still something in the neighborhood of 10 cents a round difference between steel-cased ammunition and brass. If you're a reloader, that factors in as well. But if you're not a reloader, that's still $100 per case of ammunition. So, well, let's just go. I'm just going to do a quick. Let's use Brownells. A Faxon pencil barrel, which is considered to be a quality barrel. That's a 14.5. And so unless you're going to do a pin and weld, 16-inch pencil barrel, you are looking at, with a carbine length back. One more time, carbine length gas system, or gas port in this case, $140. So if you shoot 2 cases of steel ammo and squirrel away that cost difference, you've paid for a new Faxon barrel. And under more realistic conditions, once again, I've referenced Chris Bondi several times. He shoots primarily steel-cased ammunition because he shoots a lot. He's a trainer. The last chrome line barrel that he shot out, he had on an AR now. he had north of 15,000 rounds. So if you say 15 cases, you're looking at saving $1,500. That's not just a barrel. That's not just an upper. That's an entire Gucci AR-15 in ammo savings. So once again, you can skew those metrics if you reload, so on and so forth. But that's just another example of elitism. Oh, I wouldn't dare feed my rifle steel case ammunition. Okay. Hey, Zeke Shoots is here. I was just talking about you. All good things. All good things. Brownies, yes, I saw that. I'm almost to 300. I'm going to have to start thinking about, I mean, still a couple hundred away, but I'm really amazed how quickly I've picked up these last 40-something subs. So, time to start thinking about 500 sub giveaway goodies? What do you think? How about this? I'm going to give away 2 guns when I hit 500 subs. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I think you're going to like it too. And I'm confident that this isn't going to cause me a lot of legal dispute. Fairly confident. You guys can start spreading those rumors around. Anyway, back to the discussion. Elitism in gun owners. And I'm looking over here at the preview. I don't know if this is jumping around for you guys as much as it is for me. But once again, weather's been goofy here in Indiana. And everybody and their brother is online right now because we're all at home. So, anyway, yeah, I guess the key takeaway, now that I've been yakking on this for half an hour, just be a decent person. Obviously, if somebody's going to want to throw something in your face, you can still be a decent person, but I understand how that would upset you. Somebody asks you for advice and then flat out ignores it. I can see where that would be annoying. If somebody asks for your advice, ignores it, and then the thing that you told them would happen happens, I can absolutely see a little bit of an I told you so. But at the end of the day, we were all new. It doesn't matter. Fill in the blank. Are we talking AKs? Are we talking ARs? Are we talking handguns? Are we talking cars? Are we talking computers? Cell phones? We were all new to fill in the blank here one time. Yeah, when I used to work in cellular sales. I'm not sure if that's come up yet. And then I still work in IT. So I do a lot of customer servicey type things. And I have had to tell people, look, obviously there was a time that I didn't know what I know now. So obviously there was a time where whatever this is, fill in the blank, was difficult for me. But I don't remember how and why it was because I've moved past that. So you're going to have to help me help you. There's nothing wrong with that. And maybe I'm just saying that because, I'm trying to exonerate myself. But treating somebody like they're an idiot, just don't see how it's okay. Now, if you are a content creator, if you are doing reviews or you're making recommendations, I do feel like there's a different level of responsibility that falls on myself and you. Because if I would ever recommend, and I've said this, if I'd ever recommend a product and then somehow find out that based partly on my recommendation that somebody attempted to use that product to save their own life and it failed on them and they were injured or killed, I'd have a hard time sleeping at night. Now there are products that I would understand that it falls within the realms of standard manufacturing errors. You know, if I recommended somebody get a certain minivan for their family because it's 5-star crash test rated and I'd had great luck with it, and they get one that door falls off going down the highway right from the dealership, I'd feel bad, but I'd understand that that's not normal. So there's, you know, your Smith & Wessons and your Glocks and your Berettas, and there's a lot of manufacturers we could put in there that by and large you're going to expect it to work the way it's supposed to work every time. But if I had recommended some cut rate budget brand for something and found out that it failed on one of my viewers, I would feel terrible. So I feel a certain responsibility when I review things to always point out I'm dealing with a sample size of 1. That's first and foremost. I might get the only good whatever manufactured. On the flip side, I might have gotten the only bad of whatever manufactured. And when you guys look back at the mission statement of my channel, where I want to focus on budget-minded accessories, there's not always a ton of reviews out there for some of the stuff that I look at. And so, or you're in the boat that I was in, that I'm not sure how many of these reviews on Amazon or on eBay, whatever, that I can trust. I've come to the point personally where most of that stuff I wouldn't trust my life to. Alright, now on the one hand, like we've got early video here, this handguard right here. Number one, it has been good for me. And number two, if that handguard falls off and I'm trying to use that rifle for its intended purpose, I'm going to drop back to a magwell grip and just grumble and gripe, right? Because my optic is on my upper receiver and the irons, with it being an A2 front sight base, that's all kind of fixed, right? So I try to put that caveat out there. I don't know. Maybe I've just muddied the waters here, but let's see what's going on here. Reloading for money savings doesn't make sense to me. Time has a significant value. Stone Age, I absolutely agree, and that's part of the reason that I did not end up, even for 300 Blackout, I didn't end up going out and picking up a load of reloading stuff, which was one of my original plans. And then I started looking at, okay, if I value my time at X, and that value varies depending on what I'm doing. Okay, if I'm doing side work for computers, that's a different rate than if I'm just taking the time to go out for a run. Obviously, I'm not getting paid to go out for a run, But if I have to spend 5 hours cranking out ammunition, that's 5 hours that I could have used to go for that run that I can't. So that's an important consideration into reloading. And like you mentioned, perhaps you're looking for the perfect match ammunition. Well, for that, you're probably going to want to hand load stuff. You're going to want to, go as far as put your rounds in, in a lathe or something, and make sure that they're truly concentric. And I don't know. I know that people get really weird with reloading. The other advantage to reloading that's not cost would be our current ammo scarcity situation. There's plenty of reloaders out there who already had bulk amounts of primers and powder and casings and lead or projectiles, and so now they can take their time. Now it's going to take more time than just going and ordering it or going to their local store and buying it, but they can go out and they can crank out 100 or 1,000 or whatever rounds, and they can get to the range, provided their range is still open. So that's a good reason to get into reloading. But I'm with you. The per round cost savings, in my experience, is not going to offset the time cost for reloading. And that's good information to share with a newcomer in that way, as opposed to, "Oh, you're such an idiot. Reloading won't save you money when you figure in your time. You just need to leave this group." And that's the kind of attitude that we see. So, and I'm not saying that's was your attitude, just as a for instance. Actually, that came across as, the way you put that came across as really respectful. So I don't want you to think that I'm trying to call you out. I'm not. All right, brownies. Yes, we were all the new guy at one point. Pushing a bolt carrier group backwards in front of a firearm trainer. Trying to put a mag into a magwell backwards. Trying to put bullets into a magazine backwards. Boy, I'm trying to think of what embarrassing things I've managed to catch on camera. And that's the other thing. So for those of us who are putting ourselves out here, there's a good chance if I do a stupid thing, I'm probably going to put it in as an outtake, or I'm going to leave it out so I don't feel as dumb. But case in point, when I first brought home my AR-15, I popped the upper from the lower, hinged it on the pivot pin, pulled out the bolt carrier group, and the T-handle dropped out. And boy, I got a couple of things in there messed up. I couldn't find the wide spot in the channel to get the T-handle back in, or the charging handle. And I had the bolt pushed back, so the cam pin was preventing the bolt carrier from going into the receiver. It's a simple thing, and but in that moment, I was freaking out because I had shot one round through the rifle, and I got it home and I did that, and I couldn't get it back together. I was freaking out. When I got my AK, popped off the dust cover, removed the recoil, the recoil spring, and when the bolt came out of the carrier, I couldn't get the cam lug lined up right. And then after I got the bolt back into the carrier, I was struggling because the hammer spring keeps that hammer popped up, so the bolt carrier doesn't want to engage the rails unless you push it down to the back end and slide it forward. if it weren't for YouTube's stupid draconian rules, I would just show you guys what I'm talking about in case you don't realize that. But yeah, we're all the new guy wants. Yes, Randall, I saw that video, and there was a student was like getting out of the way, and yeah, that could have been bad. And it's like talked about a couple weeks ago, there was that one Twitch streamer who had the negligent discharge on air. I'm not excusing that, but I am saying that those kind of things happen. Now, if it's safety related, once again, I think that there's a different level of engagement that we need to have there. If somebody's doing something that's going to hurt themselves and others, there's a little less upfront courtesy, typically, that I will give somebody in that case, just because of the seriousness or the potential seriousness of the situation. So anyway, well guys, this actually went a lot longer than I thought it would. Have been on air nearly an hour, and once again I see that the stream is dropping out, so apologize for that. Wish that I could do something about that. I don't work for YouTube. Anyway, is there anything that you guys have that you were hoping I'd talk about when you saw the title? Or do you guys have a situation where you've seen this in action? Maybe you want to confess being that person? I don't know. Like I said, there's situations that I still lean towards a little bit elitist. I had a coworker had a Taurus G2, not the G2C, the regular G2, and it had a habit of not always going fully into battery. He'd have to pop the back, and I said, dude, I wouldn't trust my life to that gun. And he ended up buying a Glock 19, and that was on my recommendation. And he likes his Glock 19. Am I saying I wouldn't have a Taurus? I'm not. I'm saying that I'd want at least 5,000 rounds with no flaws through it before I trusted my life to it. But that's kind of any firearm, you know, especially now that I have the basis of I have weapons that I've put hundreds or thousands of rounds through. I trust those. So if I get something new, I won't feel the need, the urgency to trust that until I have put those rounds through it. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to say that I'm never an elitist, but part of it is also the attitude with which you interact with your fellow gun owners. The one message that I would definitely share with any new firearm owners, and this is like ever, but especially now, new firearm owners during this pandemic, don't you dare use your newfound position as a gun owner to say, well, I'm a gun owner, I believe in common sense gun control. Especially if you're one of those people who's been so frustrated by how difficult the gun control we already have made your attempt to protect your life and liberty. So that's the one thing that I will definitely be hateful about. And I don't think that's elitism, that's constitutionalism. So, anyway, well, thanks for listening to me kind of rant. Do want to once again recommend, not necessarily recommend, though you can if you want to look stylish. But I do want to remind you guys that there are shirts available at bit.ly/trmerch. And once again, Teespring has bumped the cost of their shipping. I apologize for that. I think most of you guys are following the channel on social media, but if you're not, it is Tactical Review 2019 over on Facebook and Instagram. And you get behind the scenes stuff. You see kind of what I'm working on, how I'm working out, just a little bit of everything. We have some good conversation over there. Poor Conservative likes to razz me on my stuff, and I appreciate it. I need somebody to keep me on my toes. So, well, guys, it is 10 o'clock over here in the Eastern time zone. So I don't figure every stream needs to go 2.5 hours like last week. I'm hoping that Elias can join us once again next week. Part of me hopes that there's some big news or lots of little news to talk about. But in reality, these weeks where we don't have as much to talk about, that's a good thing, because that means that there's not been a lot of further encroachments on our civil liberties. So, keep your ear to the rail. Obviously, if something big comes up, if you haven't seen me share it on social media, go ahead and email me or message me, because I need to share that, keep the news going. Semper vigilantes, always be vigilant. But guys, thanks for joining. Until next time, shoot straight, stay safe.